Okay, the time is 13:32. We're now back on the record.
Okay. I've handed you what's been marked as Colombo Exhibit 1, and this is a stack of pages of lien records that were done, the last page of which is an affidavit by Liz Canfield, an analyst for lien. True?
Correct.
So let's look at the last page of this. An inquiry was made on that license plate at 20:58 hours. Do you know who ran that particular lien check?
No, I do not.
Was any action taken as a result of that lien check?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, so when you got there, yours was run at 9:53, correct?
That is correct.
And that's the third one listed?
31 down.
And after you ran yours, that's when this investigation began, correct?
That's correct.
And what action did you take? After you ran this lien, apparently what you did was you ran a lien on the license plate. True?
That's correct.
Then you saw the owner was Michelle Romain, and you ran a lien check on her license number.
On the bottom of the screen of that MDC, that's where the license number comes from. That's why you have a lien query. Directly after the plate was run, the driver's license number associated with that vehicle was run.
Is that a separate, do you have to
No, it's
run that separately, or is it automatic?
It's on the exact same page as the license plate.
So, just to make sure I understand this, at 9:53, you run your lien check. What do you do next?
Asked and answered. You can explain again what you did.
Please explain.
Illuminated the interior of the vehicle. And after illuminating with the spotlight of my patrol car, and after doing that, I got out and approached the Lexus to verify whether or not anybody was seated or laying down inside the vehicle.
And what'd you do next?
I looked around on the property of St. Paul and directly behind me on the property of Grosse Pointe Academy.
And what did you observe of them?
Nothing.
What'd you do next?
Looked directly to my left as I was facing the driver's door of the Lexus, and in line with the vehicle across Lakeshore Drive, I saw imprints in the snow in the embankment.
How far away from the vehicle were those footprints?
75 feet. The vehicle's parked on the north side of Lakeshore Drive. Footprints start on the south side of Lakeshore Drive.
Did you measure, or are you estimating?
Estimated.
Do you know if anybody measured?
I do not.
Okay. So you were able to observe the footprints from where you were standing next to the vehicle?
Correct.
And how were you able to observe them from that distance at that time of night?
I had the headlights on in my vehicle, the spotlight on in my vehicle, both facing south towards the curb where the footprints existed. My handheld flashlight and the ambient light because of the snow-covered ground.
So at this point, your vehicle is parked next to this Lexus and pointed in the same direction?
No, it's parked behind it and pointed in the same direction of the Lexus.
Okay. And with the lights on, you were able to see down the street, down to the grass area where the snow was and where the footprints were, correct?
Correct.
Were there any footprints leading from the vehicle to that embankment?
No.
So, just so that we're very clear about this, you saw the footprints by the embankment when you were physically standing next to where the vehicle was, correct?
That's correct.
And after you saw those footprints, what did you do?
I walked across Lakeshore Drive to the curbside where I saw the imprints in the snow, and I could see footsteps in the snow leading down toward the second embankment at the water's edge.
Did you take pictures of those footprints?
No.
At any point?
No.
Do you know if anybody did take pictures?
I do not know that.
What did you do after you observed the footprints?
I looked to the east and to the west to see if there were any return tracks coming back from the water's edge.
And what did you see?
Nothing. Fresh snow.
What'd you do next?
I could observe that the lake side of the embankment was open water. There was no ice leading directly from the embankment edge, or the seawall edge, out into the lake. And I immediately notified my supervisor, Lieutenant Rogers.
Okay, and what happened next?
Within 2 minutes, he arrived at my location. I explained to him what I had and what I believed I had.
And what did you tell me you believed you had?
I believed that there was somebody in the water.
And did you show him the footprints?
Yes, he did.
And did either of you walk over those footprints?
No.
Okay. What happened next?
After explaining to Lieutenant Rogers that I believed that there was somebody in the water, he agreed with me, and he felt the same under the circumstances, at which time we decided that the dive team would be activated.
That the what?
The dive team would be activated.
At this point, did you or Rogers take any pictures of these footprints?
I did not take any pictures.
What were you able to observe of the footprints? What did it look like?
The footprints were, they're smaller in stature. They were from heel to toe. They were shorter. The ball of the footprint appeared to be pointed, and the heel appeared to be similar to an impression made from a high heel, like a stiletto.
Was there any ice that was broken by the embankment?
Not that I recall.
Was there any possible point of entry into the water?
Yes.
And was the water frozen, or was it ice, or was it water?
No, the lake, it was open water extending out several hundred feet away from the embankment at that point.
So at this point, it's you and Rogers, correct?
That's correct.
What do you do next?
At that point, at the time it was PSO Trupiano, Sergeant Trupiano, he arrived. I explained to him the same that I explained to Lieutenant Rogers of what I observed and what I thought I had.
And who called? Do you know how Trupiano came to the scene? Was he called? Was there a call put out?
No, he arrived just from my general broadcast.
What was your general broadcast?
To Lieutenant Rogers, I asked him to make my location for a suspicious situation.
So then after Rogers came, then Trupiano came onto the scene?
That's correct.
And do you know what time it is that he arrived on the scene? Is that written anywhere?
Who?
Trupiano.
Rogers or Trupiano?
Yes, Trupiano.
Thank you.
Shortly after 10 p.m. It was within minutes.
Would there be dispatch records from dispatches to exactly what time you arrived, what time you called for backup, what time Rogers arrived, and what time Trupiano arrived?
Let me object to the form of the question. I don't believe this witness has ever testified that he has called for backup, and therefore I object to form and foundation.
Let me rephrase that question. Do you know what dispatch takes notes of?
They take notes of general requests of generating an incident or calling out at a particular location. They would then record that time and date.
Would they keep a record of the time and date that call was asked for? that assistance is asked for?
Not usually, no.
What about if, let's say, when Rogers arrived, would he tell dispatch that he arrived on the scene?
Not always.
If he would tell them that, would dispatch keep notes of that?
Probably half the time.
So now, let's go back to where we are. So now there's you, there's Rogers, and there's Trupiano all at this particular scene, correct?
Correct.
And does anybody walk over these footprints?
No.
Okay, who's the next person to arrive on the scene?
That I do not know.
Were you there?
Not after Pietro Trupiano arrived.
So after Trupiano arrived, you left.
That's correct.
And you, when you left, the only two people who were still there were Trupiano and Rogers, correct?
That's correct.
And at that point, nobody had walked over these footprints.
By the time
When you left.
when I left, after I left,
At the time that you
at the
left.
time that I left, nobody had walked over those footprints.
I'm handing you what's already been marked as Rogers 4. Handing it to your attorney first. Are those the footprints that you observed?
It's difficult to tell from the photograph.
Would it be fair to say that this is not an accurate depiction of what you observed when you observed the footprints?
It's close.
It is close?
That answer out loud.
It's close. The impression, the body impression in the snow
And
and the tracks leading back this way
how about,
are similar.
okay, and these tracks over here, and right now I'm kind of midway through the picture, moving from the right to the left, where there seems to be two tracks going. Are those the tracks that you observed walking towards the water?
From looking at this picture, I can't tell if those are the tracks that I observed or not.
Okay, so looking at this picture, you can't really tell where the footprints that you observed are, can you?
Correct.
Have you reviewed any other pictures prior to testifying here today?
No, I did not.
Did you review the pictures that McCarthy took?
No, I did not.
Do you know whether or not he even took pictures?
I do not know who took pictures.
Did you discuss this case with McCarthy or Trupiano or Rogers prior to testifying today?
No, I did not.
What did you do to prepare for your testimony today, if anything?
In addition to meeting with his attorney,
I would imagine he probably did that, but I'm not going to ask any questions about that. Did you indeed meet with your attorney?
Yes.
Okay. And did you review anything?
Yes.
Preparation. What exactly did you review, please?
This packet that we all have and the interrogatories.
Please identify the documents that you have in front of you.
starting with, I assume you want to identify the exhibit that is on top of the packet.
Which is Exhibit 1.
All right.
This is the packet in which we all have. And this, the interrogatories that I reviewed with my attorney.
Can I see the top document that you have over here, please?
Okay.
I have a problem. Let me identify it for the record, though. I believe it is the radio log, 2 pages, 28 and 29.
I'd like to mark this as an exhibit and get photocopies of this as well, please. We can go off the record for a minute.
Sure, we can go off the record.
Time is 13:47:28. We're now off the record.
You don't have a copy of that?
The time is 13:51:46. We're now back on the record.
Okay, looking at Exhibit 2. Do you know what Exhibit 2 is? Can you identify this document, please?
This document is radio log from dispatch on January 12, 2010.
And there's a suspicious situation that takes place at 2155, correct?
Correct.
And unit dispatched is 34. Correct?
Correct.
And what is unit 34? Is that you?
That is me.
And the one that the entry before that took place at 7:35 p.m., correct?
Before the 2155 you're speaking of?
Yes.
Yes, that's correct.
So there's nothing there about the lien check that was done at 8:58 p.m., correct?
There can't be,
Why can't there be?
because I ran the plate. Dispatch did not run the plate. I did not ask dispatch to run the plate for me. I don't notify dispatch anytime I run a vehicle.
You don't or you do?
I do not.
Okay. But upon discovering that it was a suspicious circumstance or situation, then you did notify dispatch, correct?
Correct.
And that was only 2 minutes after you ran the lien check, correct?
Correct.
So at 9:55 is when this suspicious situation started to be investigated. Fair?
953.
9:53. Do you know if Michelle Romain was ever contacted that evening by anybody at your department?
I do not know that.
Do you know if anybody from Grosse Pointe Woods contacted Michelle Romain on that particular evening?
I do not know that.
If somebody would be dispatched to Michelle Romain's home to tell her that this vehicle registered to her was discovered with footprints leading to the water, would there be some sort of record somewhere showing who went there and when they went there?
Sure.
Is there?
Are you asking me, or?
I'm asking you if there is such a record. Yeah.
Not that I'm aware of.
Are you familiar with this file? Let me ask it this way. You've looked through the police reports, correct?
Yes.
You looked through the narrative that was written by, I think, Colombo and Joann?
I did not write a narrative.
No, did you read through that narrative?
Through Tribbiano's narrative, yes.
And is there anything in this report about an officer being sent to Michelle Romain's home to advise her about this suspicious situation?
Not that I have read.
So do you have any idea what time, I'm asking you if you know, do you have any idea what time an officer arrived at Michelle Romain's house to advise her of this circumstance?
No.
Do you know who would know?
No.
But as far as you know, it would have to have taken place after 9:53 p.m., correct?
Correct.
Did you have any contact with the Coast Guard?
No.
Do you know who did?
No.
Did you have any contact with the Canadian authorities?
No.
Do you know who did?
No.
Did you have any contact with the Grosse Pointe Woods Public Safety to advise them anything having to do with this investigation?
No.
Do you know who did?
No.
You did not ask for anybody to be sent to Michelle Romain's home on that evening, did you?
No.
Do you know if anybody did?
No.
have any idea when during this investigation it became, well, let me ask you this. When you initially ran the lane check, would it be fair to say that the first person that you thought might be the missing person was Michelle Romain?
It would be fair to think that it would be the registered owner of the vehicle.
And at some point later on, you learned that it was not Michelle Romain, but her mother, Joann Matouk Romain, correct?
That's correct.
When is it that you first learned that?
It was the following morning.
That's because you had already left the scene, right?
Correct.
And who is it that informed you about that?
That I do not recall.
Just get some glasses.
Do you know if anybody ever dusted this particular vehicle, the inside of the vehicle, for prints? Fingerprints?
No, I do not know that.
I'm going to hand you what's already been marked as Rogers 8. And you see that according to this report, it was assisted by you, correct?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear it.
You see that according to this report, it was written by Antonio Trupiano and assisted by John Bruno, you, Jeff McQueen, Andrew Rogers, and Michael Scott, correct?
Yes.
Did you look over this report prior to it being entered?
As this report was written and entered in Clements, is that what you're asking me?
Well, whenever it is that...
I don't review other officers' reports. I don't have that authority.
Okay. You see where it says that, and I'm on the second line towards the end of the report, tracks led from the vehicle to the water's edge. Is that true?
Tracks led from...
The vehicle to the water's edge. Is that statement true?
It's true in its intention.
Oh. Why don't you explain to me what the intention of that is?
The intention of this statement, tracks led from the vehicle to the water's edge, is the fact that the tracks were directly in line with the vehicle crossing Lake Shore to the embankment, or the curbside leading down the embankment.
But it was 75 feet away, wasn't it?
Approximately, yes.
Okay, so it would not be a true statement to say that tracks led from the vehicle if the tracks didn't start until at least 75 feet away from the vehicle, true?
You have the photographs to prove that, correct? Okay. The discrepancies in here.
Okay. So, again, the statement that tracks led from the vehicle to the water's edge is not a true statement, true?
Not true.
Okay.
It's true in theory. It's true in the intent of the narrative.
Okay. And how do you know the intent of the narrative? Did you discuss it
Because
with
the officer that wrote it was with me that night.
Okay. And did you discuss it with him at all?
Well, for the record, this officer sat through the sworn testimony of Antonino Trupiano this morning, and you inquired inquired of him of this issue ad nauseum, and this witness obviously was not required to somehow deaden his ear or hearing ability.
Is that an objection, or is that just a statement?
It's an objection.
What's the objection, just so the record's clear?
Well, I'm going to also object that if he heard anything from any of my clients while I was working with my clients in total, he is not to discuss any of those conversations in that they are privileged.
Okay. Back to the question. How do you know what Antonino, thank you for pointing out.
Why don't you change the pleadings too?
Okay. How do you know what Antonino Truppiano's intention is with that statement?
Both Sergeant Truppiano and I stood on Lakeshore between the curbside leading down the embankment to the water's edge, between the Lexus, discussing the circumstances prior to my leaving the area. So we were both in agreement with what I had originally thought, with what I had originally observed, and so I understand his meaning behind what is written here.
If you were going to write a report, would you write that, or would you write it differently?
Object to relevancy. Go ahead and answer.
I think everybody interprets or absorbs information differently, so I'm not quite sure how to answer that.
Well, it's very simple. If you would have written a report about what happened that evening, would you have written that statement that tracks led from the vehicle, or would you write that differently?
I would have written that the tracks led from where I originally observed them.
Okay. Not from the vehicle, right?
Correct.
Should we go off the record, please, for a minute?
Time is 14:03:49. We're now off the record. Time is 14:04:55. We're now back on the record.
Have you ever seen a photograph relative to this case that accurately depicts the footprints as you saw them going into the water and not returning?
No.
Okay, I have nothing further for this witness.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Bear with me, officer. I know I have some questions. Let's see if I can review something that possibly short circuits. Officer Colombo, any time in your life were you ever introduced to Joann Matouk, Romain?
No.
And any time in your life, Officer Colombo, did anyone ever ask you to murder Joann Matouk, Romain?
No.
At any time in your life, Officer Colombo, did anyone ever ask you to conceal the murder of Joann Matouk, Romain?
No.
At any time in your life, officer, did anyone ask you to conceal any of the facts and circumstances concerning the disappearance of Joann Matouk, Romain?
No.
Did you at any time have any conversations with a Mr. Tim Matouk?
No.
Have you ever been introduced to Mr. Tim Matouk?
No.
Do you have any reason to believe that a Mr. Tim Matouk had any reason whatsoever to cause the disappearance of Joann Matouk, Romain?
No.
Do you have any knowledge as to any reason why Tim Matouk would have any reason to commit a murder of Joann Matouk, Romain?
No.
Did you at any time conspire with any of the co-defendants in this case to assist in the disappearance of Joann Matouk Romain?
No.
Did you at any time on your own take any steps to cause the disappearance of Joann Matouk Romain?
No.
Did you at any time conspire with any of the defendants in this case to commit a murder of Joann Matouk Romain?
No.
Did you at any time conspire with any of the co-defendants in this case to conceal or cover up a murder of Joann Matouk Romain?
No.
Did you at any time conspire with any of the co-defendants in this case to conceal the disappearance of Joann Matouk Romain?
No.
Did you ever cause or contribute in any way to the disappearance of Joann Matouk Romain?
No.
Did you at any time cause any harm, physical harm whatsoever to Joann Matouk Romain?
No.
At any time, were you aware of any relationship ever existing between Tim Matouk and Joann Matouk Romain?
No.
At any time, were you aware of any relationship between Joann Matouk Romain and Bill Matouk?
No.
At any time, were you ever aware of any relationship between Joann Matouk Romain and John Matouk?
No.
At any time, were you ever aware of any relationship between Joann Matouk Romain and David Romain?
No.
At any time, were you aware of any relationship between Michelle Romain and Joann Matouk Romain?
No.
At any time, were you aware of any relationship between Joann Matouk Romain and Kelly Romain?
No.
At any time, were you aware of any relationship between Michael Romain and Joann Matouk Romain?
No.
At any time, did you take any independent actions to deprive the civil rights of Joann Matouk Romain, including but not limited to her right to equal protection under the law?
No.
At any time, did you, with any of the co-defendants in this case, conspire to deprive Joann Matouk Romain of any of her civil rights, including but not limited to her right to equal protection under the law?
No.
Are you aware of any of the defendants, including yourself in this case, that caused or contributed to a deprivation of the civil rights of Joann Matouk Romain, including but not limited to her right to equal protection under the laws of the state of Michigan and the United States of America?
No.
Will you strike that? In your professional capacity as a public safety officer, did you ever become aware of any complaints that Joann Matouk Romain may have made against anyone concerning whether her phone was being tapped, she was being followed, her home was being invaded, and or her mail was being tampered with?
No.
You were asked a lot of questions about a 2008 Lexus SUV that caused you to commence your investigation on January 12, 2010, being parked in a parking lot at St. Paul's. My question to you, officer, is when you discovered the vehicle that you have testified about this afternoon, that vehicle was not parked in a parking lot, was it?
No.
Where was that vehicle parked?
It was parked on the driveway side of St. Paul.
Do you know if that is a one-way driveway?
It is.
Okay. One way coming into St. Paul's or one way exiting St. Paul's?
One way exiting St. Paul.
All right. Thank you, sir. I have nothing further.
You said that it was not a parking lot where you saw the car?
It's not a designated parking lot, but people can park there. It's private property.
Your attorney just asked you, was it at the parking lot? And you said no. Wasn't that your answer?
Yes.
Was it or was it not the parking lot?
That is not a parking lot.
There are parking spaces right there?
People park there. I'm unaware if there's actual designated parking spaces there.
So you're unaware if it's a parking lot? True?
Yes, it's private property.
Okay. So you don't know if it's a parking lot, right?
Sure.
Okay, so when your attorney asked, what's it? What's it?
Not that it has any bearing on anything, but okay.
No, well, obviously it has no bearing on anything, but when your attorney asked you, was it the parking lot, and you said no, that wasn't really a truthful answer, was it?
It was a truthful answer.
Okay.
If you're going to describe it as something, it is an exit way out of the main parking lot from St. Paul.
And you don't know if there are parking spots there, right?
I don't know if there's designated parking spots there.
You were part of the dive team, weren't you?
That's correct.
What time did you enter the water?
Within an hour.
What time did you exit the water?
Within an hour.
Did you find the body?
No.
Were you satisfied that you did enough of a search of the water that if there would have been a body there, you would have discovered it?
Yes.
Okay. So, and you didn't get out of the water because it was too cold to continue, did you?
Eventually, yes.
Okay, but when you got out of the water and stopped the search, is it fair to say that the reason that you were stopping the search was that you were satisfied that you were not going to find a body there?
No.
Search at what time?
What?
Search at what time?
The search that he did.
On what day?
Fair enough. We're talking about the first search. When the dive team ended the first search, was it because it was too cold? Was that the reason that the search ended?
Are you asking me specifically when I exited the water?
Let's talk about first you and then the dive team. When you exited the water, the first search that you did that particular evening, why is it that you exited the water?
Because of thermal protection.
Okay. Were other people ready to enter the water when you exited?
Yes.
Okay. When is it that the search was called off that evening? It doesn't really matter when. Let me ask you this. Why was the search called off when it was called off?
Mainly because of temperature.
That's the
Our
reason.
bodies couldn't succumb to any more hours in the water at 36 degrees.
When the dive team exited the water,
I'm sorry? When did they?
No. When the dive team exited the water, were they in there for long enough to have discovered the body, if there would have been a body there?
Yes.
And no body was found, correct?
Correct.
At that point, did this become a missing person, possible abduction, or did it stay a suicide?
At no point did I label it as anything.
Do you know if anybody else in your department at that point labeled it anything other than a suicide?
No, I do not.
Thank you. I have nothing further for this witness.
Now, for me,
We are completed.
the time is 14:15:57, I've approved it.